For most of American history, the middle class was built on one simple thing: stability. It was built on the idea that certain things were predictable. You had predictable wages, predictable housing costs, and predictable expenses for healthcare and education. You could plan for retirement. A family could actually create and stick to a budget. A worker could expect to advance in their career. A household could save money. But that entire foundation is gone. The middle class today is living on a floor that keeps moving, while the ceiling they're supposed to reach just keeps rising further out of view. Let's break down exactly why this is happening. This brings us to the first key reason the middle class is disappearing. People look at their paychecks and think, "Hey, I'm making more money than my parents ever did." And on paper, that's often true. But that number is incredibly misleading. Because income is not wealth, and your wage does not measure your well-being. When you adjust that income for the real cost of living, things like housing, childcare, healthcare, and food, the average household today has less purchasing power than the average household back in the 1980s. A raise today doesn't mean a better life. It often just means you're covering higher insurance premiums, higher deductibles, higher rent, higher car payments, and higher grocery bills. When your income grows slower than your expenses, you're not climbing the ladder. You're sinking, slowly. And that slow decline is exactly what's hollowing out the middle. For decades, homeownership was the foundation of middle-class wealth. It was a forced savings account. It built equity over time. It created generational stability that could be passed down. But today, housing has become completely unreachable for millions. Home prices have surged far beyond wage growth. Families are now competing with huge institutional investors for the same limited properties. Interest rates have skyrocketed, making mortgages unaffordable. The housing inventory has shrunk, and new construction has lagged way behind population growth. And all the while, rent has climbed into the stratosphere. The middle class used to build wealth through their homes. Now, many are losing wealth just trying to afford one. When the single most important wealth-building tool becomes inaccessible, the middle class cracks. Let us be clear. The middle class isn't disappearing because people bought too many luxury cars or spent too much on avocado toast. It's disappearing because the basic necessities of life cost more than they ever have before. Healthcare premiums have risen over 200% in just 2 decades. The cost of childcare now rivals college tuition in many states. Groceries have become permanently elevated after the recent inflation spike. Utility bills are up dramatically, and insurance costs for your car, your home, your health, surging in every single category. These are not optional expenses. These aren't lifestyle choices. These are the raw, non-negotiable costs of just existing. The middle class isn't being squeezed by indulgence. It's being squeezed by survival. Now for the part almost no one wants to talk about. The middle class is disappearing because it's financing its lifestyle with debt. And I'm not talking about debt for vacations, luxuries, or shopping sprees. I'm talking about debt for medical bills, for rent, for groceries, for car repairs, for student loans. It's credit card balances that just keep growing. When your savings disappear, debt fills the gap. And that debt quietly erodes the middle class from the inside out. Households aren't failing financially because they're being irresponsible. They're failing because the basic math no longer works. Another major reason the middle class is shrinking is that our modern economy really only rewards 2 groups of people: those who own assets and those who don't. If you own things like stocks, real estate, businesses, or intellectual property, your wealth has likely skyrocketed over the last few decades. But if you rely solely on your wages on trading your time for a paycheck, you're running uphill on a treadmill that someone else controls. It's a wealthy win almost by default because they own the things that grow in value on their own. The middle class loses because they rent the things that just get more and more expensive. This has created a 2-speed economy. There's one race where wealth multiplies itself, and another race where people are just trying to keep up and are falling further behind. The middle class is stuck right in that widening gap between them. Think about what a job meant to past generations. A job meant stability. A pension meant you could retire with dignity. A career meant upward mobility. But what about today? With gig work, contract work, automation, offshoring, and now AI displacement. We have constant corporate restructuring. There are no pensions, there are no long-term guarantees. The types of jobs that once supported entire families now barely support survival. The middle class was built on the foundation of stable careers. But for the most part, those careers just don't exist anymore. And when work becomes unstable, life becomes unstable. The final reason the middle class is disappearing is subtle, but it's incredibly powerful. The very definition of middle class has changed. It used to mean you could afford a home, a car, you had a savings account, a stable job, a retirement plan, and you could take occasional vacations. But today, being middle class often just means you're living paycheck to paycheck. It means you have debt instead of savings. It means you're renting instead of owning. It means you feel fear instead of security. It means you're surviving, not thriving. This isn't just a lifestyle downgrade. It's a complete identity shift. People who technically count as middle class according to income statistics no longer feel like they belong to it. Because the lifestyle that once defined the American middle class barely exists anymore. The middle class didn't just vanish overnight. It eroded, one price hike, one bill increase, one financial stress at a time. It wasn't a sudden crisis. It was slow, quiet, constant pressure. The question now isn't just where did the middle class go? The real question is, what replaces it if nothing changes? If this resonated with you, share your experience in the comments below. Your story matters more than any data point. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so more people can see the truth behind the numbers.